Okay, and here we are in this very first episode of this show that I am creating. But I guess I should start by introducing myself with my own name. My name is Brandon Pudwill. I am a university freshman, but I do have a little bit more planned to describe about myself, and in this very first episode of this show that I have titled The Creative Outlet Podcast, otherwise known as the COP, the COP, whatever we end up preferring in this experience. So I guess it would be best to start this off by describing what exactly is this show. And this is going to be a podcast for me to get creative and do something that I personally am interested in doing between some normal work, which of course raises the question, why a podcast of all things? Well, I think about in the things that I like to do, the things that I know how to do, and speaking is definitely my greatest strength. In a sense, acting, it is something that we will see as we continue on this podcasting experience, because I have a flair for the dramatic arts, but I've never been skilled in things like drawing or even many sports. Now, granted, I could certainly practice at those to become more skilled, but they're just not things that I've been particularly interested in doing. But I have always found myself coming back here to the media-based arts. So looking at some of the other basic questions that I suppose I should answer about this piece of media before I continue to making many episodes, what sorts of things do I want to talk about? So let me be honest with us starting this off. This podcast isn't going to be particularly innovative. Really, it's going to be mostly about things that I want to talk about. So here's some things that I plan to discuss. They go with my interest. Things like video games, if you couldn't tell from the shelf behind me, even to extent television, if that ever becomes relevant, because I do have some interest in TV, but it's really not my greatest interest. Things that are happening in everyday life, I'm definitely going to be talking about that a bit here. And something that I want to discuss further down the line in making these episodes are some political science topics, because that's really my greatest interest area. That is the degree that I'm currently pursuing after all. And plus, political science really affects us every day. So it's something that I definitely want to get into. But the reason I'm saving political science-y topics for later rather than starting it right now is because I don't want this show to be politically polarizing, especially here at the start. I don't want it to, or want you all out there as the audience to be like, nah, Brandon, I don't like him because he has a certain political ideology that I'm not. Because I strongly believe that if you all as listeners are able to relate to me on other topics like, video games, for example, or, TV, movies, that sort of stuff, or even just general things that are happening in our everyday lives, that it is easier for you to be accepting and understanding of the places that I may come from, and potentially persuade you on any of the issues that I care about, the positions that I have on them. So I don't want to get too much into that right now, but down the line, you're definitely going to see me talking about, let's see, like the date that I'm recording this is January 11th, 2020. If this were like I don't know, I'm not exactly sure how many episodes I want to go into before I'm like, okay, we're crossing that threshold. We're going to talk about like a current event. But, let's just say this is maybe like the 20th episode or something. I was like, okay, we're going to cross that line. We're going to talk about a current event, but we're still somehow today's date. We'd be talking about things like how the recent assassination of Iranian General Soleimani, or, of course, the impeachment proceedings and how they're going to be potentially heading to the Senate pretty soon. But that's not something I really want to discuss at the moment. Now, probably the biggest, most important question you're wondering as a potential audience is how frequently am I going to be releasing episodes? So the thing about this show, right, is it is a hobby. I'm not relying on this to support me financially. So my goal right now, okay, is to post a minimum of one new episode at least every 2 weeks or so, but we're going to really see how it goes because going into a bit about myself, one of the things that I talked about is that I am a university student. Now, let's just back up first a second here. It's like we're going to be talking here a bit about myself, but I'm not going to reveal too much because a lot of things that you're going to learn about me are just going to be revealed through the process of, doing this show normally, right? And, we're going to talk about things like news, general topics, and just I'll reveal more about myself through the process of that. But some things I want to talk about right now. I am a university student from the state of Wisconsin in the United States of America. I don't want to reveal exactly where I am at the moment, especially in the case of this particular studio, because I am currently pretty much about at the end of my winter break. So the next time I even think about recording one of these, I'm going to be back at the dorm. So you're going to be seeing a totally different place from where I am right now with a completely different background. So, as great as this is, don't get too used to it because it's going to be changing pretty soon here. But suffice it to say, the reason that I bring up the fact that I am both from Wisconsin and a university student is that I will be discussing probably a bit more about potential Wisconsin-related topics than elsewhere. I'm not from Arizona, so I'm not going to talk about Arizonan things unless I think it's super important or interesting. And of course, the topic of being a university student really ties into, well, how often am I going to work on these things? Because ultimately my goal with this is to release these when they are ready, when they are complete, and hit the table there, when they're complete and ready to go, and not like, I'm just going to try to churn something out because I need to make something, because that's no fun, and they're not going to be nearly as good. So, the goal is to have something every couple of weeks, but ultimately we're going to see how that ends up going. Okay, well, we just, it's the first episode, and we're already having tech problems. The camera battery for the video portion of this died, so I just let the battery charge up for about half an hour. Fortunately, I've got two here, so I have the other one over in the wall way off frame still charging, and I have one in the camera right now. I mean, okay, this isn't really my own camera. This is a friend's camera, but yeah. It's fine. It happens. We're just gonna pick up where we left off. So, what was I talking about last? Oh, yes, we were talking about who am I, your lovely host, your hostess with the mostest, me, Brandon Pudwill. So, we talked about how I'm from Wisconsin, how I'm a college student. So, why don't we just go about a little bit more trivia about myself. So, another place that I lived when I was younger was actually in southern central Pennsylvania, right about around Harrisburg, which is the capital of the state. I would imagine most people know that, but, never hurts to brush up on that information. So I might end up discussing some things that happen around there. You never know. There might be some interesting news that comes out of there that I'm like, ooh, I'm from there. I want to talk about. Well, I was from there. I want to talk about that. That sounds interesting. Plus, I mean, like I talked about earlier with being a political sciencey person, Pennsylvania is one of the original founding states. So I can see many interesting political things coming out of there. Let's go back into some of my interests. So, like I said, I love video games. They like out of every media, well, let's see, we have like movies, television, music. You could argue internet videos, and then of course, video games. Like I have up here, and then I have some down here out of frame that you can't see. Right up here, comes is the collection for out of the current gen hardware, the one that I own, my favorite one in the year 2020, which is the Nintendo Switch. So have games. All of my games are organized up here in order in which I got them. And I guess I don't really want to go on the story right now of like how I came to own this system, but I guess I can talk about why exactly out of the three main systems, this one is my favorite one. So, going into some of my background about me, something else that's back here, just below the TV, that I'm blocking so you can't see it, is the very first game console that I ever played. This is in like 2004 or 5-ish. I remember having the opportunity with my father to play his Super Nintendo Entertainment System with the three big games that I'm the most nostalgic for on that system, playing with him, being Super Mario World. I mean, it came with every system, so no matter what, I was going to play Super Mario World, and it is awesome. I don't need to tell you that. You should already know that. If you haven't played Super Mario World, just pause the video and go play Super Mario World. It is the quintessential best 2D Mario game, in my opinion. Some people argue Super Mario Brothers 3. I say they're wrong. No, okay, they're not wrong. They just have a different opinion. I prefer Super Mario World to Super Mario Brothers 3, by a long shot. But Super Mario Brothers 3 certainly isn't bad. And the other two games were Donkey Kong Country, again, another classic. It's interesting. In recent years, I've seen a lot less interest in Donkey Kong Country, with a lot of people, again, thinking about it as like, ooh, it was just big and great for the graphics. People love the graphics, which is very upsetting because the level design in the entire trilogy is actually very, very proficient. It's very good. I quite enjoy it. Now, the only one he had was the original Donkey Kong Country, the one with Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, which barely had any tracking of like the bonus rooms, and they were super cryptic. So by no means am I going to say that the original Donkey Kong Country is the best game of the trilogy out of all 5 games. My personal favorite, just because it's so unique, is probably Donkey Kong Country 3, actually. I know, unpopular opinion. I could definitely be swayed to pick one of the other ones. But I just enjoy how unique Donkey Kong Country 3 is, but I will always have the nostalgia for the original Donkey Kong Country, just sitting here. Well, okay, well, not here. Sitting out in Pennsylvania, playing it for the first time with my dad. That's a memory that I'm always going to keep with me, and then that has transferred into my love for the current hardware that I have sitting behind me. And another reason, I guess, looking particularly at the Nintendo Switch piece of hardware, is I've always been more of a portable handheld gamer. And that's actually for a bit of a variety of reasons now. The very first piece of gaming hardware that I was able to personally own was a Nintendo DS Lite in 2007. It was the Onyx Black model. I received it as a birthday present from my grandfather with Yoshi's Island DS and Big Brain Academy. And I still have the original copies in the original boxes to this day. I don't know if I lost the manuals because I was a stupid 7-year-old kid who didn't care about that stuff, but now that I'm a stupid almost 20-year-old man, I do care about that stuff. So, if I don't have them, I will find copies of them, but I'm pretty sure I still do have them. Anyway, yeah, so that was the very first game platform that I personally owned, and I fell in love with it. Just between those two games, I actually don't know which one I've played more between Yoshi's Island DS and Big Brain Academy, but I know for sure, like, I played those two a bunch, and then, I got New Super Mario Brothers, the game that everybody had for the Nintendo DS. Almost everyone had it. Mario Kart DS, classic. Love that game. I mean, the thing about Mario Kart, though, is that it's so hard to go back to old ones. I would love to go back and play Mario Kart DS, but for me, it's so hard. Even another one, Mario Kart Wii, for me, is super hard to go back to after having played future entries. Particularly, let's pick it out right out here since I've been gesturing up to this library so many times. Particularly after playing this entry. This is, of course, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, as you can see in the camera. My favorite entry in the series. I played the original Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. This is the same game, but just with, a few more things. Splatoon characters in actual battle modes. That helps with arenas, more battle modes. All of the DLC from the original Mario Kart 8 added to the game, some new characters. Fantastic game. Possibly the best game on the Nintendo Switch. It's not the one that I would pick, but I can definitely see why people would pick it as the best game. Though, of course, it also loses some points in my book because it is just a glorified Wii U re-release, which is kind of sad. I would have preferred a brand new Mario Kart, but, this also came out in the very first year of the Nintendo Switch and has been strong ever since. And I can't say I don't like it because it is my favorite Mario Kart. Let me put this back first. So I might have a second of silence while I'm looking away, and we're good. Let's see, looking at other games. A lot of Mario. That's one of the big things about me. I've always been a Mario person, like what I talked about with Super Mario World being one of the first games that I ever played. Games like other DS games that are like Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini Land Mayhem is the other one on the system. And it's really interesting. So, I have my computer up here that I'm using to look at my notes, which is very helpful. I have a list of, systems with games I'm still looking for. And the set of DS games that I have bookmarked as, here are ones that I want to get someday, is even longer than, the Nintendo Switch, like I said, which is the current piece of hardware. Now, to be fair, when looking at the Switch list that I have in these bookmarks here, it's only for physical games. If you include digital games, obviously it's quite a bit longer. But the DS game list is so long because there's so many good games in the Nintendo DS. One of the ones that I say this as if I got into it super recently, but a couple of years back, I actually got into the Ace Attorney series. So that's one that's definitely a game that we're going to be talking about here, whether it's going to be in news or my experiences with the series. That's going to be a hard one because, it's very story-based, and I definitely don't want to give spoilers to people who want to play it. Now let's just see. Another one. I recently tried out Trauma Center Under the Knife for the Nintendo DS. And I actually have a couple of the games on the Wii here that I've down below me that I've yet to play. Primarily because I started with Trauma Center Under the Knife, even though it's the third game I got. I got New Blood first, and then purchased Second Opinion, which is the Wii re-release of Under the Knife. But the reason I started with Under the Knife instead of just going right into Second Opinion is because I want to gain an appreciation for the way that the DS version plays, because I hear the Wii version is better in pretty much every single way, which I'm inclined to believe that that's true, but I want to gain an appreciation for the DS version, because I'm sure it's still a perfectly good game. It certainly can't be terrible, but given that the console version likely blows it out of the water, I still want to be able to give the DS version its own fair shake. And the only way I feel like I can really do that is by playing it first. But I'm probably going to play Under the Knife, then try out Second Opinion. I'm going to play the first game, and then I'm going to play the first game again on console, and then move on to New Blood. But before trying out Trauma Team, I haven't even seen Trauma Team in public or like a physical copy of it. So, I'll figure out how I'm gonna get that game. But in between, I will want to try Under the Knife 2 on the DS just to see, like, okay, now that I've played the Wii version, how much more obtuse is the adjective I want to use? How much more obtuse is it going to be going back to the DS version? Like, how much better is it actually on the Wii? So I think that's about the extent of my gaming interests I want to discuss. Like I said, Nintendo is probably my favorite. That's not out of the console manufacturers. That's not to say there's anything wrong with PlayStation and Xbox. I mean, I have a PS2 back here behind me too, but I've just never had the same sort of connection that I've had with either of those brands that I've had with Nintendo systems, which is definitely why I have that bias of mine. And in some ways I feel like that's unfortunate, but it's definitely also just simple personal preferences coming out too. And I would certainly love to get into other hardware at a later time. Like I say this now, right at the end of the PS4 era, almost getting into the PlayStation 5. But I'd love to get a PS4 or a PS5 and start trying out some of the games on there. But I just feel like since I get so much more out of having a handheld experience with my console experience, that if a game is multi-platform, there's a Switch version, even if it is objectively in every merit other than its portability the worst looking version, that's probably the one I'm going to pick up, because wouldn't it be great to be able to play something like, I don't know, this isn't a game that I would well, actually, I could just take some of a couple of the games I have in this collection behind me that are multi-platform. Like, let's say I have Sonic Forces and Team Sonic Racing, and Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. We'll talk about that game another time, but today is not the day that we talk about Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. But, the point is, all of those games, the Switch versions, are objectively the worst version in every metric, whether it's like load time, graphics, frame rate. But I still bought that as opposed to waiting and getting a version on, say, the PlayStation 4 Pro or the Xbox One X, because I like having it portably. I like being able to just be like, let's see, I'm on a long car ride here. Why don't I just play a couple of races in Team Sonic Racing? That sounds good, Let's see. So again, yeah, I think that covers the general interest in gaming that I have right now. But obviously, we're gonna discuss that quite a bit more as we just go through this podcast. And what's another thing about me? I don't watch a ton of TV and movies. And that's not to say that, like, TV and movies are bad and stupid. I'd honestly rather watch a lot more of what's happening on YouTube. Particularly because I feel like a lot of what's made on there is a lot more genuine. That's definitely something about me is I hate things that feel totally like fake and like manufactured, because they just feel gross. And I don't know if that's a concept that's necessarily going to make sense, or if it's something that people are going to agree with me on, but like, I think about things like even something as simple as like all of the greetings stuff when I started up college. It's just like doing stuff like, oh God, it was like the Chancellor's Convocation, and she's like, this is the only time until graduation that all of you will be in the same room with each other. It's like, that's, I don't know, it feels gross. It feels fake, like we're trying to build up this fake sort of community. And that's kind of the way that I feel with some TV and movies, is like, obviously it's meant to be fiction. I know it's fiction. I know that for sure. But like it just feels kind of gross for some reason. Again, I don't know if that makes any sense. That might just be a me thing. It might just, me being dumb, but I'm very particular with what I want to watch on TV. So, I like what are some of the things I want to get into? I really want to watch the DuckTales reboot because, well, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, they're over here. I have the 3 volumes on DVD of the original 1980s DuckTales series. And I've only actually ever watched them through once. I found it very hard to even want to go back and watch it through a second time. I'm not sure why that is, but I feel like the times that I have chosen to be like, oh, let's, maybe I'll want to watch an episode. And then I'm just like, oh, I don't know. It's not as good the second time through. And I can't really put my finger on why I feel that way. But the new series, the episodes that I have seen, have definitely made me be like, ooh, I want to see more of this. This is really interesting. A lot of the TV I actually watch, kind of how I had ended up talking about, like, I want to watch some of the things that are on YouTube. I just happen to see, like, clips of stuff on the internet that just gets recommended to me. I'm like, sure, let's watch this. Like, for some reason, I keep getting... well, and it's funny. We're going to talk about this later. I have a couple of, like, scheduled topics because I want to show sort of like what a normal episode of this is going to be like. I keep getting recommended stuff like Man vs. Food by Food Network UK, and it's just like I've been watching a ton of clips of those, and it's effectively the equivalent of watching a full episode by just even watching like 3 of the big challenges that I believe the hosts are at one point it was Adam Richman, and then at another time it was Casey Webb. Seeing what they went through, I don't know. It's just interesting. Let's move on from that. I mean, well, I guess I do have one other thing about movies. This is a classic quote that a classic quote from me at least. Anybody who's interacted with me has probably heard me say this. 9 out of 10 times, if you ever ask me, Brandon, have you seen I was gonna say X movie, but that's a bad choice of words, and now I've said it anyway, so people can take that out of context. Brandon, let's change that back. Brandon, have you ever seen a Z movie, Y movie? And I'll be like, no. Now, granted, you might pick one that I have seen. It doesn't happen often, but I have seen some films. I just haven't seen a ton of films. I don't know. Hopefully that's going to change in the future as well. Like I said, my degree is going to be in political science, so that's going to be a topic that we discuss at some point here. I guess looking at my aspirations with that degree, let's get the big one out of the way. I think it would be really cool, really fun, though also admittedly incredibly boring, to be a part of each level of government at some point. And I don't mean like I want to be in the legislature and the Supreme Court, no, or the executive. No, I mean like I think it would be neat to be here I'm a local politician of some kind. Now I am at the state level, and then eventually when I am old and have white hair and wrinkles on my face, now I'm at the federal level, even if that just means I'm like, a congressman that gets elected every 2 years. I think that'd be really cool. I definitely have things that I want to change about my country, and I am very strong on how I feel about what should change. That's not to say it's like, no, compromise, screw compromise. No, I'll do some compromising. I definitely am willing to debate about things and why I feel the way I do on certain policies, but that isn't something that's going to be super important to me right at this very second, especially, because I'm just completing my degree. Really starting my degree. I just finished effectively the first semester, though I have 30 credits. But I think that's all I really want to discuss about myself. So, like I said, at this point, I want to start getting into how these episodes are going to be normally, by talking about some of the things that are happening in the world, talking about some general topics. I'm going to start with a piece. It's not really a piece of news so much as it is just a thing that I want to look at. And then I have a couple of more general topics. One that I have briefly already touched on here, kind of, sort of, not really. But that's the last one of the topics I want to get here. So, why don't we just get started on that? All right. This is going to be good. All right, let's see. So, the first thing I want to talk about, like I said, we're in January of 2020, so focusing on some of the upcoming games. The big one that's in my mind is Animal Crossing New Horizons and how it's doing so many new things. So I'd like to do a bit of an overview of the changes in New Horizons, because obviously, just starting this podcast here in January of 2020, I haven't really been able to do any coverage of the news about it up until now. Now I want to start with some of the newer information and go back to some of the information that we've known for a long time about the game since June of 2019. And I'd like to do this by going over some new screenshots that were released from New Year's Day of 2020. By reading the gallery article on NintendoLife.com, which is one of my favorite websites to check when it comes to looking for Switch-related news. I'm looking at the gallery. Nintendo shares more screenshots of Animal Crossing New Horizons article, which I should link down in the description for you if you want to find that easily. Otherwise, just type in Nintendo shares more screenshots of Animal Crossing New Horizons into Google, and that should be one of the first results that pops up for NintendoLife.com. And I really don't want to go over any of the writing on here. I just kind of want to go over some of the screenshots. I've already taken down some notes on some of these, so I'll probably switch between my notes and the screenshots if there's anything that I really think is important to go over. But looking at the very first picture on here, the big thing is villager customization. There's new skin colors, new noses, new hairstyles. Now, one of the things that the article doesn't make clear, but I have done some research that I'm going to go over, that I looked at to get some of the information in order about the things that we've known for a while. One of the things that I was initially confused about is, like, okay, new skin colors, noses, hairstyles, but, like, how does that happen? So historically, for those who haven't played any games in the Animal Crossing series, the way that your villager's appearance worked, well, okay, I guess skin color was already determined for you. Everybody in Animal Crossing was white, but in Animal Crossing New Leaf, the way that you changed skin color was actually by being out in the sun or by using a Mii mask. So, a Mii mask would be when you would unlock the hair shop. You can also do makeup, and the makeup would just be to turn your villager's head into that of your Mii. And, if you are a Hispanic player or an Asian American player or a black Animal Crossing player, if you just change the Mii mask, then your skin tone changed. Otherwise, for some reason, you had to stay out in the sun. And that, first, scientifically, it doesn't make sense that your skin would, turn black by being out in the sun for very long. But I don't know, it's just kind of silly that you couldn't pick that stuff. But the way that everything else was determined for you, I talked about how there's new noses. You could never pick your nose, but you could never pick your nose. You could never pick your nose shape is really what I mean. But, your eyes and the hair color and the hairstyle you have to begin with was determined by questions that you answered. In the case of the original Animal Crossing and in New Leaf, you ask Rover asks you on the train as you're getting to the village. That determines your appearance. Whereas in Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, you actually design the character. So one of the things that I wasn't sure about when I was first reading this article was, do we get to design our villagers now? And later, as I was doing some research on this, I checked out the Nookipedia article for New Horizons. So Nookipedia is the Animal Crossing wiki that's part of the NIWA, which is basically the, I think it's the Nintendo Independent Wiki Alliance. So like that's where you get the Super Mario wiki, the ARMS wiki, the Inkipedia is the Splatoon wiki, so I'm probably going to check out some of those for information. I know generally you aren't supposed to use like actual Wikipedia as a source, but I'm just going to tell you, these networks are very, very reliable on the information. Plus, I mean, it's a video. It is a video game. It's not like talking about some scientific actual research topic, so I'm perfectly fine using a source like Nookipedia. But one of the things that it immediately clarifies in that article is that we are able to fully customize our villagers out of the gate, including hairstyles and skin tones, which I like. But if I have the opportunity, I'm not exactly sure. Like, I'm looking at this top screenshot that shows how you can have 8 villagers, 8 people playing in your town at one time. And I'm not sure if I want to go with the super generic villager on the left in the red one t-shirt, just because that's the villager that's in Smash Brothers, or if I just want to recreate the one that I have in Animal Crossing. Oh, geez, I'm getting some hiccups. The ones that I have in Animal Crossing New Leaf currently. So, not sure yet. I'll figure that out. And then I guess moving down on the screenshots, springtime is gorgeous. It is beautiful looking. So looking at all the non-fruit trees in it, they have cherry blossoms. That's why they have the pink leaves, whereas all the fruit trees have the normal green leaves, and they have then they have the green, or not the green, the 3 pieces of fruit hanging off of them as standard in Animal Crossing games. But the really interesting detail all the really interesting details are actually a bunch of those small little things you can pick out in it. Like the fact that the girl, the human girl villager in it, is actually wearing sandals. Now there were a couple of pairs of sandals in Animal Crossing New Leaf, but the ones that the girl is wearing appear to be new sandals. And again, just looking at it, you see a lot of the things like you have a table outside and a chair, and you have stitches in the background on the bench. You can still see classic details like how the world. So one of the things about Animal Crossing, at least starting for sure with New Leaf, is the world is actually a rolling log, which I think is kind of interesting. That's a neat way of trying to get the world to look like it's completely interconnected, but not really at the same time. And then this second screenshot, the one in the rain, there isn't really anything all that interesting to me in it. But let's see. Let's look at the fall one. That one actually, to me, has some pretty interesting details in it that I want to go over. So again, like with the last screenshot, it's a lot of the little details in the fall one here that are very interesting. I mean, in this screenshot, we have another villager of color. The point is, it's a human character that's like not white, which is great. Animal Crossing needs that diversity, especially because it is a life simulation game. And like with a bunch of other screenshots, I think one of the interesting things is that you can just put furniture on the ground plane, which is a very tiny thing. But it's very interesting. So those who played Animal Crossing New Leaf know about things like the public works projects. And the way that I always thought about the public works projects is that they're basically furniture for the outdoors. But in this case, I look at stuff like in this screenshot, it's the third screenshot, the fall one. You see stuff like the bucket over by the fence, which is quite literally a piece of furniture that you can place indoors or outdoors. So when I was initially looking at these again, I was like, wait, so are we unable to place furniture outside as leaves? Because that was one of the things in the original game. Now, granted, you didn't necessarily want to do this, but if you dropped a piece of furniture on the ground, it would just be a leaf. And I don't remember if that's like an option or not. And it's really an inconsequential thing, but I'm just kind of curious. And then just kind of looking at other stuff in the shot, we have things like there are the leaf piles on the ground. The villager is in front of one trying to catch a bug, and then there's another leaf pile in the background, which I'm not. Those have never been in Animal Crossing, but I'm not entirely sure what we're going to find in those. Whether or not it's going to be just because one of the big things about this game is the crafting aspect. I don't know if that's just going to be another thing that we can find crafting materials in, or if we're going to find bells, or maybe the occasional piece of furniture out in the wild. That would be pretty cool. But the thing that, interestingly to me, that it seemed like the most players got excited about was, so if you look in the background, the cat character, I think her name is Kiki. She's wearing glasses. Now, we've seen that I believe it was in Happy Home Designer, but definitely in Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, villagers were able to wear glasses, but never in a mainline game like this. I don't know how animals will get glasses, or like maybe they'll be able to have some of the facial accessories that human villagers have been able to have before. But, it's interesting to see those sorts of things regardless of how exactly they're implemented. And then we get to the winter screenshot on there, and like with the summer one, there's honestly nothing that's really super interesting in it to me. Again, there's something like the campfire is outside, again showing how furniture can be outside, or one of the villagers in this image is Fauna, and you can tell. So in the original games, villagers were able to wear shirts, but it looks like this is a dress that Fauna is wearing, which is pretty neat because villagers have been unable to do that before. So like I said, I kind of want to look at some of the broader game details as well. So that's why I pulled up the Nookipedia article for New Horizons 2. And so how I said earlier, the article clarifies that we can customize our villagers. Another thing that it clarifies is that so you could actually place furniture outside in Happy Home Designer, which is true. I couldn't tell you why I didn't remember that, but I know that was a feature because that was something I did all the time in that game. It was like, ooh, it'd be cool to put this thing outside. For this villager when I was designing some homes for them. Let's see. One of the big bullet points on the article is about multiplayer. So the fact that an island can support up to 8 players at once is huge. Now, to be fair, I don't know if I'm going to ever have more than 2 players on the same island at one time. But for people who know a ton of other Animal Crossing players, that feature is awesome. And that's not to say I wouldn't mind having 8 players on at one time. I can't think of a scenario where I'm ever going to have more than 2 players on my island at one time. And then the article also went over the villagers, the ones that we've seen, it doesn't talk about the ones we haven't seen, but it talks about the ones we have seen, some of the special villagers, and that they do some of the things they do and the ways that they interact with players. Another thing, I guess, actually, now looking at this winter screenshot again, that Nookipedia points out is animal villager shirts now have sleeves, which they've never apparently had before. I think it also talks about how, sheep villagers, they always used shirts as scarves, and now they use them as actual shirts. I don't know why they bothered changing that. It doesn't really matter to me. It's neat either way. Another thing that it talks about is that animal villagers' eyes, and I think this applies to human villagers too, correct me if I'm wrong, villagers' eyes now follow. Like if they see you coming into their line of sight, or if they see a bug or a fish in their line of sight, their eyes will follow them, which is pretty well, because that's how actual people and animals interact in the real world. It's like, wait, is there that thing there? Let me turn my eyes to that, and then I'll turn my head toward that. Which I like that attention to detail to stuff like that, but at the same time, I always wonder how much players actually care about that sort of thing. Which, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, it's not something that I really think about when I'm playing, but I can definitely say that when games do have features like that, it's something that I notice a couple times, like, hey, look, are those villagers' eyes following me? Is it watching? Oh, that's pretty neat. Like, I noticed it a couple times, but that's usually about it for me. But, if other people love that sort of stuff, that's great. More power to them. It's certainly not a bad thing that they're adding these sorts of features and that technology allows it. I don't know if it's super integral. I don't know if it's something that's great, or if people love it, or if they don't care. It's just kind of interesting. But the elephant in the room with this game for me is crafting. So crafting in Animal Crossing New Horizons is a feature that I am torn on. I'm very, very torn on. But a lot of my issues with it might actually come down to the way that I play, though. So looking at crafting, it's something that I've honestly never really liked in games. Like, okay, I'm gonna reveal a personal fact about me. It's gonna get a lot of younger people and definitely some people at my age going, what? I never have owned a copy of Minecraft, and I've never really had any interest in playing it. And it's because I don't get crafting. Like, obviously I get crafting in real life. I know there's like, you put the metal and you put the wood together and you make a thing. But I don't know. It's something that's never really appealed to me, just aimlessly going out to find things to try to make another thing. Now, I think it's a little bit better in Animal Crossing because you get the DIY recipes to guide you on how to make things. And I know, obviously, if you have the knowledge of past Animal Crossing games, you know the general sorts of things. Like, you're going to make an axe so you can chop down trees. You're going to make a shovel. You're going to make a watering can. You're going to make a fishing rod. And, you're going to make a bug catching net. Like, you already know some of that stuff. So in that sense, it isn't too bad. But at the same time, one of the issues for me, and again, this is a very personal problem. So like, I'm looking at all these screenshots, and it's like every area is so populated with like weeds, and obviously the trees, and that's so you can collect crafting materials. And I'm so guilty of being like, what people call, like, when you're collecting like a ton of coins in a video game, you get called it's a real word too, but you're being a kleptomaniac, which is just the idea that like, I have to have everything. So like, I can just foresee myself playing this game and accomplishing nothing but picking every single weed on the ground so I can have as much of any material as possible, which is a problem to me because I want to accomplish other things other than just collecting a ton of the materials. But again, that is a very personal me problem with crafting. It is not an issue with Animal Crossing New Horizons. Let me put that out there right now. So yeah, that's the coverage I have currently for Animal Crossing New Horizons. It releases on the 20th of March, 2020, exclusively for the Nintendo Switch because it is a Nintendo property. I am excited to play it. I'm not pre-ordering it, though. I do know some people who are pre-ordering it, but I am not one of them. Still excited for the game. Very interested to see how these new mechanics work out. Actually, one other thing, kind of bridging, going into the next topic appropriately, one thing that hasn't been talked about with the game is whether or not it is compatible with Animal Crossing Amiibo figures or Amiibo cards. And I swear, if they're not compatible with Amiibo cards, that's a problem because there's like 450. There might be 460 some Animal Crossing Amiibo cards alone, plus like the 18-ish figures. And people spent a lot of money on those. I'm really hoping they're compatible. Which gets us into my next topic, which is Amiibo. They're kinda, sorta one of my things. I mean, I can't reach, but, back on my shelf here, I have some of these new Amiibo that I got recently, including this one, which is the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Link Amiibo figure. I also have some other ones back here that I purchased from... I purchased Chrom and Incineroar recently just from the store, and Link here and his compatriots, Super Mario Odyssey's Wedding Bowser, Ridley from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and the Ice Climbers in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I purchased all of those directly from the Nintendo store on Nintendo's own website because, I like Amiibo. So, well, actually, let's just step back. I'm sure many people remember the big Toys to Life craze that between 2011 and I want to say it died down more around 2016. And the only Toys to Life brand that's still around are the ones that I have up there, which is Nintendo's Amiibo line. Now, let me just say that's not the extent of that is not my entire collection. I do have a few. I have a few of the ones that I have out of the box up here, but one thing about me is that when I'm at home, I have to switch between parental households. But eventually, once I get my own place, which is really to say, when I have the money and the roommates who are willing to split money on a place of our own, I'll hopefully be able to show off the big, gigantic Amiibo shelf I have, and actually, hopefully, I'll be able to move those into a more secure shelf. With more space for me to put even more on there. Anyway, I'm getting off track here and talking about my own Amiibo collection rather than talking about the topic as a whole. The only Toys to Life brand that is still around in 2020 is the Amiibo line. So let's just do a quick little history lesson about Toys to Life. Even just starting with myself. I started with the original Toys to Life product, which is Skylanders, starting with Spyro's Adventure on the Wii. And really, looking back on it, the game is really mediocre. But it was also, for me, when I first got it, it was the rare time that my uncle on my dad's side actually ended up purchasing myself and my sibling a Christmas gift. So as much as I look back on that game and I'm like, oh my goodness, that game was so mediocre and we spent so much money on it, it's still a pretty special thing to me, if only because that was from a family member who I usually don't ever receive gifts from. Who I don't usually ever receive gifts from. So that was pretty neat. And, I remember, I opened up this huge box on Christmas being like, what in the world is this? And inside it had the Wii game. It was also on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, if you wanted a copy on there. And the Nintendo 3DS, actually. Can't forget that version. But in it, it had the game, the Portal of Power, as it was called, which is basically just the thing that you put the characters on. And then it had a figure for Spyro and two other figures that were original characters. Now, at the time, I was 11, and when you're 11, a game like that is awesome. I loved it quite a bit. But the main problem with Skylanders that continues for me today with the Amiibo you see back there is that I've always had a collector personality, which again, I even kind of discussed that a little bit in my New Horizons talk just now, and that is like, I need to collect all of the things. And that mentality even extends back into my days when I was like 4 years old with wooden Thomas the Tank Engine trains. The point is, I've always been a collector. So now we get to Amiibo today. Generally, let me just put that out there. I'm gonna try not to do two Nintendo topics in a row normally, because I know that people in my audience care about more than Nintendo games and stuff like that. But there's actually something that specifically got me thinking about these fun plastic figures again. And one of my favorites, and it's because one of my favorite games. Let me just pick it off the shelf here, quick. Oh, got two figures on top of that one. This is the game Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Fantastic game. Probably my favorite Nintendo Switch game for sure at the moment. If not, it's going to be my favorite during the entire lifespan. Though I don't know, it might be Super Mario Odyssey that ends up being my favorite. I don't have The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is probably shocking to many people, but that's beside the point. The point is, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate got me thinking about Amiibo again, because currently, as of the recording of this, which I will remind you again, is January 11th, 2020, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is running an Amiibo tag team tournament in its online tourney mode. And the format of this tournament is just a basic, so it's a two-person team, you as the player, and your Amiibo figure. And whichever team gets the most KOs in 2 minutes and 30 seconds wins the match. And then you move on to the next one up until you have the winning team. So the tournament really isn't anything all that special, other than how it lets you and your Amiibo play online at the same time, which has not happened for Super Smash Bros. Before, at least as far as I recall. I don't know, maybe there was something special in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate before. I know that you can take your Amiibo into battle arenas, but the thing about the battle arenas is that the Amiibo replaces you as the player instead of letting you and the Amiibo play together. So it's like either I can play in the battle arena, or for funsies, I can send my, let me go pick them out over here. Oh, come on. Either I can play online, or my good friend King Dedede can play online instead. And, I mean, I want King Dedede to play online and play against other people, but, I also kind of want to play. So that's why this tournament is neat, because I can go on and DDD can go on. And that's exciting. That's great. I love that. In fact, I really hope that this... So this is a special event tourney. I really hope it just ends up being absorbed into the normal types of tourneys, instead of just being like this one-off tournament that we're going to do one time ever and then never again, because that would be very sad. But I was very disappointed to learn that while I was playing, that even though I have learning turned on for my good pal DDD here, he wasn't actually learning anything. Okay, well, he was learning strategies and techniques from the people who are playing, because all of a sudden now he's doing taunting a lot, and I've never taunted against this Amiibo before, but, players who I'm playing with online were, so that's probably why he's taunting now. So he learns, but he doesn't actually gain experience points, and so, when I started the tournament, this DDD was at, level 43, and, now he's at level 50, and I'm still in the middle of the tournament, but it's just kind of disappointing, because it would just be nice if it would gain experience online still. Anyway, so Amiibo, am I right? Like with all the other Toys to Life ideas, I think they're pretty neat in some ways, but also not so neat in some others. And so far, there are 4... Toys to Life game brands that have been out so far, and those include Skylanders, which I already talked about, Disney Infinity, Lego Dimensions, and Amiibo. And, honest to goodness, even keeping my own personal bias about, but I have so much nostalgia around the Nintendo games, and it's my favorite. Even keeping that in check, I have to say that I'm not surprised that out of all the Toys to Life brands that have stayed alive, that Amiibo is the only one that is still in production today. So, I guess I just want to start by going briefly over, and I mean briefly over each of these brands here. I highly encourage, if you can. I haven't done this yet, but I would very much recommend looking up a more comprehensive history of Toys to Life on YouTube. Let me just see here if I can find an example of a good video. Oh, it's hard because I haven't watched any of these yet. But I would look at like one of the videos I see on here about Toys to Life is. No, I don't know about that one. It looks like there's a bunch by this guy named Kodak on here about like the fate of Toys to Life, released 2 years ago, or what's another one? He has one on the fate of Amiibo in particular. There's a couple on here about Starlink, Battle for Atlas, which is like Ubisoft sort of thing. I have that game. I have a physical copy of it with the Star Fox. Well, this is the Nintendo Switch version, and really, I mostly wanted it because the R-Wing looks pretty cool to me. But yeah, and this Kodak guy also has a Disney Infinity retrospective, so it looks like Toys to Life is kind of his thing to cover. It looks like that's what he's excited about, so I would recommend looking into those videos, but hopefully I'll be able to give you a better idea at some point when I've viewed more of these. And I'm sorry, this is kind of an unprofessional thing at the moment to be saying. Is like, well, I haven't really watched these, but you should look into other stuff. But I can't really give you a recommendation. The point I'm trying to make here is I'm going to give you a super brief look at why these brands are gone right now. So looking at Skylanders is the originator. So with the original game, super popular. You could even argue with its sequel, Skylanders Giants, that it continued to ride on the popular momentum that it had. But then Skylanders just kept going and going yearly. It was a yearly release from 2011 until, last one was in 2016. But it also, the last entry was also released on the Nintendo Switch as a launch title in 2017. It was Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, Skylanders Giants, Skylanders Swap Force. Oh god, Skylanders Superchargers was the fourth one, I think. And then, oh geez, I can't even remember. I don't know if there was a fifth one. Oh, Skylanders Trap Team. That's the one I was forgetting in the middle there, I think. It was Trap Team. Well, let me just make sure I'm not missing any more before I go on here. Let me check out here on Wikipedia. Oh, I had them right. So yeah, Spyro's Adventure was the 2011. Giants was 2012. Swap Force was 2013. Then Trap Team was 2014. Then it was Superchargers in 2015. And then the last one was Skylanders Imaginators in 2016. But then, there's been a bunch of, like, mobile spin-off-y releases, so great, that's grand. But, so the problem that Skylanders had, that it kind of circumvented with the first game, because really the real draw for any little kid for Skylanders Spyro's Adventure is because it's Spyro's Adventure. People played the game because it was a Spyro game. Because the problem is it's full of a lot of the original character do not steal type creations. It's like everyone's interested in Spyro. The people who are really into Spyro are interested in, I think the character in it was Cinder, who was from like the Legend of Spyro series. And then later on, like way later on, they added Crash Bandicoot and Dr. Neo Cortex from the Crash Bandicoot series. Like, those are the characters that the general public, the general gaming public is interested in. But how many people are going to care about, like, generic Creature 1 and generic Creature 2? Like, all these, okay, I guess I should say, they're not necessarily unimaginative, but if they don't already have a game that people are interested in attached to them, there's really no draw to collecting the other figures, especially because they kept releasing more and more and more and more characters that people don't know anything about. On top of which, so between the original release and the second release, I'm pretty sure, so Spyro's Adventure had like 32 characters. And then when Giants came out, so they added all the Giants, and then they added one new character to each series. And they made brand new figures for every single character except for one from the original series. They didn't bring back one character from the original series, but they also made like another version, be like one that lights up when you connect it. It was a mess. And then they made more for Swap Force. Not just the new ones, but again, more re-releases of the other ones. And then they made more. Now at this point, I'm pretty sure with Trap Team and Beyond, they stuck to pretty much just new characters, but I could be wrong because I didn't follow them. I didn't follow the game Beyond Giants. I was like, oh, I want to play Giants because I enjoyed the original game, but I didn't really care beyond then, to be honest. Like I started the game and I was like, oh, this isn't nearly as fun as the original for some reason. I just couldn't put my finger on it. Let's see. Let me look at this article here, since I have it up. Figures. The second game. The second game introduced the Giants, and then there's Series 2 that have an exclusive upgrade called a Wow Pow Power. Oh no. Oh man, my editor is going to have to put something unique in here because movie recording is stopped automatically. Hold on, let me pause this for a moment and work with the camera, and then we'll get back to talking about Skylanders. Yeah, okay, so I don't know, we'll figure out what's going to go over that bit there. Hopefully I don't have to get up too many more times while I'm doing this, and hopefully the camera doesn't keep changing, but I'm sure that's going to be annoying to the editor, whether it be myself or it be someone else who's doing this. Yeah, we'll figure it out. It's going to be fine. This is the first episode. Things aren't going to go so well in the first episode. That's why I'm only really going over three topics and like some basic intro-y things. But yeah, so looking at the topic, I was talking about how there were figures. There were... Oh, it doesn't say how many figures were in the first group, but it says for Giants, there were 8 Giants, 8 new core characters, so I guess 8, so it's 8 original characters, 24 reposed characters, 8 light core figures, 3 magic items, and 4 sidekicks. And then with Swap Force, there were 16 Swap Force Skylanders, 16 new core characters, 16 reposed figures. So you see, they just kept growing and growing and growing and growing, but, again, how many people are going to care when the main reason they bought into the original was for Spyro or for Spyro and Cinder, right? So that's really the main problem that Skylanders had, is there's only so much interest in these original characters, and there's only going to be so much interest that kids are able to get out of it, especially because they can only spend so much money on the figures. Now, the second one that came out was Disney Infinity, and this one was actually kind of surprising to me, because, it's Disney. Like, they have, appropriately enough, actual Scrooge McDuck amounts of money, and it definitely seemed like Disney Infinity had some popularity, but it never, ever reached the craze that Skylanders had when the first game came out. It never got especially super popular. Like, honestly, I don't think I actually knew anyone who had Disney Infinity. And again, that's not to say it didn't sell any copies, but it's like, how easy it was, or even arguably still is, to find like a $5 copy of the game at the store and just find, at like a used $5 no figures or anything copy at like GameStop. And like you can just find tons and tons and tons of the figures if you go to your local game store, or even, well, probably more likely your local toy store. You'll just find like a whole case full of them there because people don't want the figures. And again, that's surprising to me because it's Disney. People love Disney, but I guess it just isn't as popular in video game format. And then we get to Lego Dimensions, and really my commentary on it is very similar, but instead of being about Disney properties, Lego Dimensions was about a whole bunch of different properties. So there's like Scooby-Doo, Back to the Future, The Simpsons, The Wizard of Oz, of all things. But the really interesting thing about it is that it was Lego. So you actually built, there were little minifigures, and like a tiny mystery machine. There was a Sonic one. You got to build a tiny Sonic car and build a tiny little Sonic mini guy, and you put them in the game, and they worked, and you did the scenarios at them. So, again, I feel like the publisher knew it really wasn't going to be all that popular because they knew they were going to make more Lego games regardless of Lego Dimensions. But it was definitely an interesting concept because, again, it's Lego. People love Legos. I feel like it should have been more successful if only because of that, because, you still get a Lego figure out of it. So, I don't know. I really couldn't tell you why these things lived or died. I could just tell you that that's pretty much what happened here. And finally, we get to Amiibo. So why am I surprised that out of all the ones, these are the ones that lasted? And it's pretty simple. The characters are iconic. And that's actually why I'm surprised that Disney Infinity and Lego Dimensions really didn't last that long. Because Amiibo has the benefit to it that anyone would love to have, anyone wants a tiny Mario. Anyone wants, appropriately enough, a tiny Link figure that they can use in Smash Brothers, right? And then you also have the fans that want your, let's just see here. We'll go over here. Oh, come on. You'll get your fans like me who, like I said, had one of his first games be Donkey Kong Country, who wants his King K. Rool figure because he loved Donkey Kong Country. But the general public probably doesn't really know who King K. Rool is, but they might be interested in him if they like him in Smash Brothers. But that's about it. But to me, really, the extra X factor that Amiibo has compared to all of these other figure-based platforms is that Amiibo can be used in a ton of games. Now, granted, so if you still had Skylanders from the first original green-based series, you could still use them all the way up to the last game. But any of the ones that were brand new in the brand new series, they can't go backwards, is the thing. So anything old can go forward, but you could never go backward in it. So in a way, some are compatible with other games, but for the most part, they're really not compatible because you can only, hit the microphone, you can only go forward. And then the same thing with Disney Infinity, too. It's like you can only, any figures that were compatible in 1.0 are compatible in 2.0, which are compatible in 3.0, but not going backward, and they're not compatible with any other game because they're made for Disney Infinity. Lego Dimensions was just its own game, so there's really nothing to comment on here. But, you know how I mentioned a Mario Amiibo? You can use that in like 15 different games or something. Now, granted again, also, you can only save one game's worth of data to this Amiibo. So, DDD that I had up there, or that I pulled out, and now K. Rool, who I pulled down here, I can only have Smash Brothers data saved to them unless I get a third-party accessory that lets me take data that I have saved to this Amiibo figure and upload it to my computer. But then I have to go through and get on my computer every single time I want to switch and be like, oh, can I put my K. Rool Smash Brothers back on here? Okay, I'll put that on there. I mean, not that K. Rool is savable for anything else, but for something like Mario that's usable in it seemed like a ton of different games. Maybe I want to have some Mario Party 10 data on it, but I also want my Smash Bros. On it. But what I can transfer all of my Smash for Wii U amiibo that I have leveled up to level 50, but now they're only going to be level 12, which is annoying. So maybe I just want to restart with them, but I don't want to lose all that work I did to get them to level 50 in the Wii U game, right? That's annoying. But I can still use that Mario amiibo for read-only stuff in Mario Kart 8 / Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Mario Party and, God. Oh, geez, can he? No, I think it's read-write for Paper Jam, Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. But the point is, I can read it. Oh, Yoshi's Woolly World, that's another one you could just read only. And Yoshi's Crafted World, for that matter. The point is, I can use that one figure in so many games. Whereas Skylanders and Disney Infinity, I can only use those in 4 games, and they have to be in the same series, and they can't go forward. So, Amiibo has the benefit that people who care exclusively about using them for their intended use can buy one figure of the character and be all happy with it, and it'd be like, yay, I can use my Samus in all of these things. That's great. But then you also are able to please people like me who like Nintendo games as a whole and who like collecting things, because it's like I can collect them all if I want. Now, granted, I'm not going to collect every single amiibo because there's a dozen or so characters. I'm like, why do I need Solera Vistora? I don't care about Dark Souls. Why do I need the Monster Hunter one? Oh, that's right, I don't need the Monster Hunter ones because I don't want to play Monster Hunter stories. It's not to say those games are bad. They're just not games I want to play, and if I don't want to play the game, I don't really need the amiibo associated with it, and that's fine. It's really that simple. So, that's all I have to say about Amiibo at the moment. There are definitely a lot of other things I could comment on about them, especially, oh my god, just even think about simple things like the stocking problems they had. That's going to be a topic probably of its own completely. But I think I'm ready to move on to the last topic I have for this session, which is the one that I briefly touched on earlier, which is internet recommendations are weird. So, let's see. Let me just pull it out to show off to everyone here. I have an Android cell phone here. Specifically, I have a Google Pixel 2. One of the features that I actually quite enjoy on it is being able to just swipe left to see a list of news articles to read. I would imagine that iOS has a similar feature, but I don't have an Apple device. And I'm not really an Apple person. I have a PC sitting right in front of me with my articles on it, with my notes on it, not a Mac, because Apple's not really my thing. Nothing wrong with Apple products. I just prefer, I've just always, again, kind of like how I had the Super Nintendo as my very first console, and then the only other console my parents ever bought, not including the DS, though specifically for me, was the PlayStation 2. Obviously, I have a lot more nostalgic connection to Nintendo, and the same thing is they only ever had a Windows PC. I never the only time I ever used Macs were at school, and then I don't know. I mean, Apple's okay. I don't like it as much as Windows, but that's a personal preference. My family just happened to have a Windows computer, So like I said, I really enjoy, at least on my Android device, getting back to the main topic at hand, just being able to look left and have a bunch of news articles to read, and obviously there's some important privacy concerns to discuss when it comes to features like that. Usually we think about how Google tracks our searches in order to advertise to us, but that same sort of technology is true and used in how Google is able to recommend news articles to us. And I'm just going to put it out there right now. I would be significantly happier if Google would not sell my information to advertisers to make money off of me, because I value my privacy. But I also can't say that having articles recommended to me on things I'm interested in isn't convenient. But at the same time, I would definitely take the time to find news about things I care about if it means not being tracked, Like, I know I'm going to go to, like I said, I brought up Nintendo Life earlier. I know I'm going to go to them to read about the next couple things that are happening for Switch news because they're going to tell me what I want to know. I know to go to, go to the New York Times to look up what's happening in terms of foreign policy and in terms of economic policy, even though I don't necessarily agree with their coverage because they do definitely. We'll talk about the Overton window. We'll talk about it later. Not relevant right now. Point is, I can find things if I really want to. I just don't want to be tracked to get things recommended to me. But this topic. And actually, it's funny, this particular topic was discussed quite a bit in the communication arts class that I took in the first semester. So there's really a lot more I could say about, like, and commentaries on, like, loss of privacy. But it's probably better to leave that for a specific, like, dedicated, here's how we're losing privacy now because big tech, later down the line. But the point is, I just get, like, the strangest recommendations on Google and in other places. Like I brought up, I get recommended stuff on YouTube. I got Man versus Food for some reason. It's great. I actually found myself quite enjoying it, so I'm not upset about it, but I don't know why I got it. I keep getting all this Gordon Ramsay stuff, and I know his channel has, like, 13 million subscribers, but, like, and it's not that I hate watching stuff. I enjoy watching it here and there, but it's just like, why? Why am I getting Gordon Ramsay stuff recommended to me when I'm, watching stuff like Some Call Me Johnny reviews and, like, what's another good thing to watch? Just some, like, Game Explain news or even secular talk. None of those things are similar to either of those examples that I've been recommended. I got nothing wrong with them. They're great. I'm perfectly fine watching them, but there's nothing remotely similar about them. Or another thing is, like, the only social media platform that I use, I mean, you could argue YouTube is a social media platform, but I think of it more of a content creation platform, but, we're now really, like, splitting hairs. The only, like, social media platform I use is Reddit, because I like to connect with people around particular topics, because the thing about stuff, I'll definitely talk about my philosophy on social media in a future episode here, but one of the things about platforms like Twitter is that I feel like a lot of it is just like, I'm talking into the void and hoping someone who happens to like what I like is going to see what I have to say, and that's not nearly as easy as just like, hey, let me go find r/Klonoa for people who care about Klonoa like I do. Wow, I found all these people who care about Klonoa. Let me connect with them on, like, their interests, the things that I happen to be interested in with them, right? It lets me find other people who immediately care about what I have to say. Anyway, so it's like, even though I haven't joined any communities similar to them at all, I keep getting recommended to join communities like r/egg IRL or r/egg_IRL and r/me_IRLGBT, which now, before I move forward, particularly because I know that this is me bringing up those particular two ones is very sensitive, I should clarify that there's nothing wrong as far as I know with these subreddits. I'm sure they're full of great people who are interested in LGBT issues and want to express themselves as, in the case of, like, egg IRL, it's about being transgender and, like, coming out and, like, being like, I'm in this egg and I'm coming out of my shell to be what I really am. I think that's the impression I get just based on, like, the little tiny things I see in my phone is like, this is what that post looks like it's about. But I'm not LGBT in any sense of the word. Like, again, nothing wrong with them. That's just, I don't know why I'm getting recommended them when I haven't joined any communities that are similar to it. I'm part of r/Ace Attorney, and I brought up Secular Talk. That is one I'm a part of, because Ace Attorney is my favorite game series, and I do like Secular Talk with Kyle Kalinske. Regardless of political leanings, I like his styling and some of the political strategies he talks about. I do agree with his politics, but we're not that's not really important right here, right now. I don't know why I'm getting a bunch of these LGBT communities when I don't have any similar, communities that I'm already a part of. Again, nothing wrong with them. I'm gonna really hammer that nail. There's nothing wrong with them. They are great. I am the most basic, boring, straight, cisgendered white guy you can find out there. So it's just a little odd to me that I'm getting these recommendations. And now looking at stuff like my Google News, it's the same thing. It's I get so many articles from Fox News or Fox Business, and I can't figure out why. It's I don't have any interest in reading Fox News or Fox Business, especially because Fox News. They're so not news. Jeez, I already probably just made a bunch of people angry just by saying that. Anyway, but I also get a ton of news about things like what's happening with the royal family, or something about what's happening with Leonardo DiCaprio, or even things like the movie Joker. I just assume kind of that I get those things because I think Google assumes that everybody wants to read about those things because they're so popular. It's just I don't really care about what's happening with the royal family because they don't actually have much of any actual political power, but for some reason they're still revered. I'll sometimes click on something that just is so ridiculous as that looks interesting to read, but in the long run, I don't really care about what happens with this particular star, this movie, if I haven't already seen it. And it's not that I don't get random interesting articles from time to time. Recently I got one about how a new bird species was discovered in Indonesia. It was an article by the New York Times, or how Taco Bell of all companies is going to offer $100,000 salaries and paid time off for restaurant managers. That was an article in the LA Times. That is huge. I love that. I don't know. I just find a bunch of strange articles popping up in my Google News, and some things don't make sense for me to see in my Reddit, and just odd stuff coming up on YouTube. And I just figured that's all something we could relate to. So I wanted to make it a topic on here because it's something I've been thinking a lot about recently. So, well, that's 3 topics. Let me just check the Audacity file, because that's the only thing that's been consistently recording here. I don't know. I'm gonna eventually need to get my own dedicated camera that can just hopefully record in one big straight file. I don't know if that's even possible. If someone knows, please let me know. Ooh, we're pushing an hour and a half here. I am impressed and proud of myself for this very first episode. But I think I'm about ready to wrap this first experience up. So, this has been fun. I'm excited to do this again. Really, I haven't gotten into post production yet. That's gonna be interesting. Obviously, if you're seeing this, I have finished post production. Wow, but currently, as I'm recording this, I haven't. The thing that's taken me the longest so far is really pre-production. It's what do I find? What do I want to talk about? Fortunately, with the next one, the intro is going to be super easy because it's just going to be hey, I'm me. What are some things that are happening in my everyday life I want to comment on? That are I just had this thing happening. It was kind of strange, but I just thought it was interesting. Anyway, let's move on to what we're going to talk about. I don't know if I should stay with the 3 topics. I think it just kind of worked out this time because I did have a very long intro of who am I? What are some things I want to do? what are the goals of this show? So I'm thinking I'm going to need to do, like, I think next time I'm just going to add one more, do 4. That might end up being a shorter podcast then. So if it ends up looking around like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, that's fine. That's great and all. But if I can push 90 minutes, that'll be also just as awesome in my opinion. So yeah. Well, thank you for listening, folks. If you can, please do all of the typical media things, your likes, your comments, maybe a subscription sort of thing. I'm probably not at the end of these going to ask for that sort of thing. I don't know. It's just like, I figure that if you want to do that, you're already going to do that. You're already inclined to do that. Maybe I'm wrong. If people don't find it annoying and they want me to do that, I guess I can say that at the end of every episode. I just figured I should for this first episode. So yes, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I look forward to joining you folks in future episodes of the Creative Outlet Podcast, the COP, the COP. I don't know what's better, COP, COP. Maybe I need to do a poll on that as we get further along. But I'm just gonna call it either or as I'm going along in these first couple episodes. So, okay, folks, I will see you next time. Thank you for listening. This is Brandon Pudwill signing out.